As a dark evening slowly descended, Washington was awash with news from all over the country. Trump set aside his normal schedule for that day to make a very special and meaningful visit. But this visit was full of surprises that no one had been informed about in advance. Trump's motorcade was heading towards one of the outskirts of the city. The wind was blowing gently, the trees rustling as if they were trying to say something. At the end of the motorcade was the house of Gary Thompson, a retired soldier in his 80s. Gary served in the Vietnam War, served in the Army for many years, and was a hero whose loyalty to his country was never questioned. However, he lived a lonely life due to the difficulties he experienced, the scars of war, and the obstacles life brought. Gary's family could not breathe easily in the years following his return from the war. The deep scars left by the war had worn Gary down not only physically but also mentally. He and his wife had raised their children but had always struggled with financial difficulties. So Gary's family, while waiting for the support of the entire community, were often left alone. Before leaving the house, Trump made the following statement to reporters as he prepared for a short speech. "Today, we are going to visit a family who have sacrificed everything for us. They are the true heroes of this country." After a while, Trump's cars arrived at Gary's house. The house stood out with its faded garden, but the love and devotion hidden inside it were more than anything else. Trump and his small team knocked on the door of Gary's house. When the door opened, Gary's eyes showed a mixture of surprise and happiness. Even the few who had known him for years could not have guessed the impact such a visit would have on his life. Gary struggled to find words when he saw Trump, but his eyes radiated gratitude. "President coming all the way here? It means a lot to me," Gary said, taking a deep breath. Trump smiled and extended his hand. "This is not just a visit. You and your family mean a lot to us. I understand the difficulties you have experienced after the war very well, and I must be with you tonight." Gary's wife Ruth invited Trump in. The table was set shortly after and everyone came together. However, Trump's real purpose behind this visit was a little different. As the night progressed, in his conversations with Gary and his family, Trump decided to make an offer that would change their lives. A pair of tears shone in Gary's eyes. "President, we have lost a lot, but one thing has not been lost. That is our pride. Still, living in our old home where my children grew up, unfortunately, we no longer have the strength." As he looked at the crowded table, Trump spoke resolutely. "I have come to you tonight not only to visit you, but to provide you with all kinds of support. Gary, you and your family will no longer have to worry about anything. This house belongs to you. We are opening a new education fund for your children, and we will do everything we can to alleviate the costs of war." At that moment, there was a deep silence in the room. Ruth and Gary looked at each other in shock, trying to process what Trump had said. Gary could not hold back his tears and asked, "President, we could never have imagined such help. How can we thank you?" Trump smiled silently and looked into his eyes and said, "You don't need to thank us. People like you are the greatest asset of this country. What is important to us is to build a future where heroes like you are not burdens." As everyone wiped their eyes, Ruth put her hand on Gary's and said, "Thank you, President. Our children will have a brighter future now." Trump had a long conversation with Gary's family that night. He talked about Gary's past, his family, and the hardships he had experienced. As he ended the night, the expression on Trump's face was not only that of a leader, but of a person who truly wanted to help from the heart. Shortly afterwards, as Trump left his house, no one in the crowd watched him without speaking. Many people would remember the significance of that night for the rest of their lives and would understand how valuable this act by Trump was. Trump, by offering his help to Gary and his family, created a moment that affected not just one family, but the entire nation. That night, he showed everyone how valuable it is for a leader to go beyond being a mere political figure and become a human being